Okay, it is 7:31. We have a quorum with Councilman Clay, Allen, Councilman Gay as well. So I'm calling the meeting to order. And the first act of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of
America, and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our next item of business is the invocation. That will be handled by Chaplain Alexander this evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. May we pray. Once again, Father, we come together in your name. We come tonight praying for our city, College Park, our state, and for this nation as a whole, as we continue to deal with this global crisis. I come tonight praying, Father, once again for the unity and wisdom to be upon this governing body, and that everything will go well according to your glory. I pray for all the employees, the citizens of this great city. I pray tonight for our law enforcement, our firefighters, and the city and the staff as they return home each night as they protect and work in this city. I also pray, Father, that as we go through tonight's agenda, that wisdom and understanding will be upon our city leaders and the staff to make the right decision concerning this city. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Next is additions, deletions, amendments, or changes to the agenda.
None at this time, Madam Mayor.
All right. And item 3, we've got several parts of it. 3A is approval of the regular session minutes dated April 20th, 2020.
Now, Madam Mayor, if you recall, that was not in the packet and was sent to us later. I reviewed it. I don't know whether everyone else has.
I've had the opportunity. Do you have changes to make to it?
I have a number of changes.
Okay.
I would suggest we might want to just go back through it page by page, and then each of us who has our changes could make them on the appropriate page, if that would be a suggestion.
Okay. If you'd like to go ahead.
Okay, my first change is on what would be, if it were in the packet, well, actually in the minutes that were sent to us. It's page 6 of the minutes that were sent to us, and it's right before you get to public hearings. I think I actually made the motion on that one. If you read the previous text, the one item 6, which just the one that preceded 7 public hearings, and I don't know what happened on that one, but it's fine with me if you want to say Councilman Ellett made the motion. He may have made it later on as a second time, but that was initially my comment. I don't know how you want to handle that.
I agree with that. You can change that.
Okay, the next one, thanks, Ken. The next one is on the next page, and it's about 2/3 of the way down the page. Right before Mayor Motley Broom said, "I have some thoughts about that." There's a single line there. Right above that, that seems to be the fairest way to go about it, so that no one is biased on the council as opposed to bias. I have nothing on the next page. On the next page, I have a couple. The second full paragraph from the top. The second line, when we do nothing as policymakers, as opposed to S policymakers. And I can forward these to Shavela as well. And then right down at the bottom, the last paragraph, I don't know exactly what was intended there. It says as complex as Mr. Marks noted, and the complex as Mr.
I think this complex.
Pardon?
This complex, not as complex. This complex.
Sounds good to me.
And I think
And then,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
you're probably going to go for the next one.
Yeah, that's okay. You want to go to the next one, or you got something on that page?
I have something on that page. It's Prestwick, not Presswoods.
Yes. And that's there's that error. I didn't catch that one, but there's another place where it's spelled wrong as well.
Madam Mayor,
I'll bring it up.
Madam Mayor, I couldn't find that spelling. Do you know that spelling?
Michelle Alexander's on the phone, and she can probably pull it up a little bit faster than I.
I think it's
Prestwick.
That's what I thought it was, but thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
okay. Then on the next page, the top paragraph, about in the middle, it says, this is mixed use income housing with units being available from 50 to 80% of the median income. Units rent being available. I don't know, maybe it's fine the way
No,
it is.
I'm pretty sure that's the way I said it.
Okay, well, leave it.
That wasn't entirely clear, but that's the way I said it.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I think people get the idea. The next paragraph at the end of the paragraph of the first line, that's for Prestwick is mentioned again, only it's a possessive. So it's Prestwicks instead of Presswoods. Next page, I had nothing. Next page, I had nothing. Next page, I have something. If you go to the about the middle of the page, there's a paragraph that starts, it says, Councilman Clay said I looked at. If you go down to the second last sentence at the bottom of that paragraph, Michelle was using SPRY tables for averages. I don't know what the right terminology is, but Michelle can probably indicate what kind of tables they were. Michelle, are you there?
I am there. The averages, I'm sure I'd have to look up the exact reference. These were DCA tables that we got from that the city had provides DCA every year from financials. So I apologize. I'll have to look it up and provide the correction.
Okay, well, obviously it's not capital SPRY. I doubt that's what they're called.
Right. Agreed.
Okay, so if you could help out Shavela with that. The next page, I have nothing. Next page, nothing. Next page, nothing. Next page, nothing. Next page, nothing. Next page. Okay, this page, again,
page?
they don't have any page numbers. It's the 19th page in the document, if that helps. At the top, it has a B, capital B, and down near the bottom, a C. And if you read that, it said under C, Councilman Clay said the compilation of the existing contract that we have. I think it was probably completion. But I don't think I use that word. Would you please check that out and put in whatever word the recording says? Next page, the second paragraph from the top. Director of Public Works Mike Mason said, no, sir, we were not expecting to use all of the funds. not expecting all of the funds, not expecting to use all of the funds. Next page at the bottom, the line right above the very bottom paragraph, it says, male speaker said, I will have that emailed to you. That was Gerald McDowell, I believe. That was item 10A.
Thank you.
Everybody with me? 28, which packet, the page is 28 in the document.
Yeah.
And the next page, top line, male speaker said that sounds correct. That's also Gerald McDowell. And the next page, the very top line, this is something I was saying, and I was talking about how I'd been able to conserve water. And what I actually said was have gone down from 3 to 4 to 1 to 2 kilogallons, not kilograms. 3 to 4 to 1 to 2 kilogallons. And the next page, the top sentence, Banneker and Tri-Cities is not anywhere near the location of our display. I was talking about the display in front of City Hall. And the next page is okay. The next page after that, which would be page 26, I'm sorry, 26. In the middle of the page, Councilman Clay said, maybe we are the only smart ones to be doing something that is going to benefit a handful of people at extra cost at this time is not a wise move. So it's going instead of ongoing. Next page is okay. And that's the end.
Okay, does anyone else have anything to add?
I'm good.
Okay. I'll take a motion.
I move to approve of those changes.
I second.
Okay, Councilman Allen seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Gay, you're on mute. Okay, all right, thank you. 3B is approval of workshop session minutes dated April 20th.
I had no changes. I move to approve as presented unless somebody else does.
I did not.
I'll second that. I didn't have any.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did I get all four?
Aye. If I didn't say it, I did now.
Okay, any against or any abstentions? All right, then it's unanimous. 3C, approval of budget session minutes dated April 8th, 2020.
Again, move to approve as presented.
Okay,
I second.
all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. 3D, approval of special called minutes dated April 6th, 2020.
Move to approve as presented.
I second.
Okay, is that Councilman Allen? Were you the second on that?
I'm sorry.
You were? I'm sorry, it broke up a little bit.
I second.
Okay, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous as well. Approval of special called minutes, item 3E, approve of special called minutes dated March 25th, 2020.
Move to approve as presented.
I have a couple.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion and subject to changes.
Okay. On line 56, it said Mayor Motley Brune, I seen the city of Hateville. I think she says I have seen.
Line 56.
When 56.
Yeah.
Oh, 57. It looks like 57. I
have seen, or I seen the city, I think.
You know, that was okay.
Or I saw.
Okay, there's a couple. I knew that because I'd spoken to the mayor of the city of Hapeville about that. I
think the issue is whether it's have seen or seen.
and it's their THEIR parks at the end of that line, as opposed to THERE. How about the city of Hapeville is sanitizing the city is sanitizing their parks at least once a day. Like just go to and just take out the I seen part. I mean,
or you know, I bet it was I see the city of Hapeville say they are sanitizing their park, but the change you suggested would be correct.
Yeah, I mean, the city of Hapeville says they are sanitizing THEIR parks.
It's better grammar.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure. My name is misspelled in this one. Line 139.
I didn't catch that. Oh, yeah.
Apologize for that.
No worries. Councilman Allen, was there anything else you had in that?
I had one more at the last page. It says Councilman Allen says he wants to thank the citizens, it should be citizens and employees.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
All right. Any other changes to the March 25th, 2020 special called meeting? Okay. Councilman Clay, do you want to renew your motion with those changes?
Yes, per the changes that we've just discussed, I move to approve.
And is there a second?
A second.
All right, Councilman. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right. Item F is approval of special called minutes dated March 19th, 2020.
I move to approve with changes.
All right.
I'll second.
Okay.
Packet page 46, on line 25. City Attorney Winston Denmark said that he and other citizens have dialed into the meeting,
Yes.
not FHE.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it for me.
All right. Any other changes to the March 19th, 2020 special called meeting minutes? Hearing none. There has been a motion and a second with that change. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. That's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. And the last is approval of special called minutes dated April 20th, 2020.
I move to approve with discussion on changes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right.
My first change is on packet page 55, line 175. So this is something I was saying, and I said, and lastly, I did look back at some of the minutes, and I noted when she came before council. So it is did rather than didn't.
Okay.
And then on line 50, or packet page 57, line 266, starting on 265, I want to point out to everyone on this call, Mrs. Willis has done that. It just says done, but he was referring to the fact that she had taken care of what she needed to. Done that. And then on line 273, and if Mrs. Willis were to be and it says determine, Of is wrong.
I think it of detriment.
Okay, it could be of detriment. That would make sense too.
That's what I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with that.
Or should be detriment as opposed to.
Yeah, of detriment to the board. Determinant just didn't seem right, but if you want to use that word, then you got to put an A in front of it. That's all I had on that.
Okay. Any other changes to that, the April 20th, 2020 minutes?
I have none.
All right. Hearing no others, there's been a motion and a second with those changes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, it's unanimously approved. Item 4, proclamations, resolutions, plaques, and announcements. We have none. So we move to 5, remarks of citizens. Ms. Moore, have you received any public comment?
Yes, I have. I have 2, and let me get them for you guys. Start my timer. Okay, the first one is from Kathleen McQueen, and it states, "Good evening, Mayor and Council. It is so nice to virtually see you. My comment is related to April 20, 2020 by the decision. First and foremost, I must stress I'm coming from a place of respect for you and your positions. Councilpersons Clay and Gay, thank you for looking at the bigger picture and making your decision to proceed with removal of body board member, Ms. Willis. I am sure it was a difficult decision. It was so clear on my screen the deep concern you had in making your decision. I know it's even more difficult when it's a colleague, neighbor, or friend, which is why I commend you for your stewardship for the integrity of the city. I must say I was surprised this decision was not unanimous. I want to be clear, the core of the decision had nothing to do with the individual. It is solely the city's fundamental values that are at stake. Hopefully, in the near future, I can sit down to discuss with councilpersons Allen and Taylor's vote of abstention and no respectively, because I'm totally dumbfounded. I can't read your mind, but from my perspective, your decision, with all due respect, was short-sighted and displayed poor judgment. Please consider the virtual meetings have opened up a larger audience of citizens, business owners, potential developers, etc. The facts were presented regardless. If it was a mistake, it was a violation, but you choose to ignore it. As the kids say, your decision was not a good look. You represent all citizens as well as to maintain the integrity of the city. I challenge you to consider the perspective, councilpersons Allen and Taylor, both of you had roles that either reviewed compliance of safety or executed safety. Imagine that one mistake an employee made cost Delta or the city physical harm, financial, its reputation, or your job. Would you find it acceptable or to ignore it? Have you forgotten the negative press our city has already received? You may see your decision as a minor, but it wasn't. There were millions of dollars developers are considering investing. They want to know our leaders are decisive and have integrity. Ambrose said it best. Come Monday morning, how will the image of the city look? Frankly, that should have been the basis of your decision. Councilpersons Allen and Taylor, respectively, I implore you to understand your decision left a long-lasting impression on the citizens, businesses, and developers that you have an inability to separate your loyalty from the greater good of our city. Thank you for your time. Okay, so that's one. And I'm moving on to the next one. And I'm starting my timer. This is from Jamil McKenzie, and it reads, this is to clarify that the Ignite Resource Center worked in conjunction with the Hotel to Home project in 2019. Ignite actively recruited families from hotels and made referrals, as well as offered our office space for vetting possible clients for Hotel to Home. We were accompanied by College Park Community Police on one occasion, but we never had any difficulty on site at hotel properties. 3 of our families were placed by this program, and we supplied food and clothing and furniture for them. And that is it.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Item 6 is other business. It's an update on the AMI billing interface and other related software from Mr. Richardson.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. This is our monthly update on our advanced meter performance, starting on page 70 of our of your packet, which is our access point performance, which is a weekly snapshot of our electric meter communication with access point. And these numbers look fairly typical, with exception of April 15th. And what happened there was, right after we had our storm and power restoration, some of our meters left West Fayetteville and went to Charlestown and Princeton. That cleared up after a couple of days. I've seen this happen before when there was a power outage. So they migrated back to their normal place after a couple of days. The next page is, of course, a meter performance, electric meters and water meters. We're still about 99.9% on electric and 94.5% on water. And we have some more water meters to replace and endpoints. And I'm going through the list as a while ago, and there's still some more. We'll just continue to whittle them down and get it below, hopefully below 100 pretty soon. Also, while I'm here, a little information for you, just ran a report today. Our average daily power demands compare of this April to last April. If you consider all of our customers, our average hourly demand is 9.5% lower. But one of our largest customers, which is now called Block Data, they didn't change at all. So if you take them out of the formula, the difference is 17.1% down. I'll send this to you in memo form before we have our budget meeting Wednesday night and give you a little more detail.
Very good information on that reduced demand.
Yep.
Thank you so much. I think there might be a little bit of feedback from somebody who might be streaming the, actually, I think it went away. All right, thank you. Next on the agenda, I'm sorry, does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Richardson? All right, hearing none. 6B is a discussion and update on recently adopted ordinances and resolutions. Anything, Ms. Moore?
No, ma'am, nothing.
All right. We have no public hearings tonight. So we are moving on to item 8A, consideration of an action on a request for approval to purchase 10 replacement vehicles for the College Park Police Department Patrol Division. And Chief Williford, I believe this is your item. You're recommending Aikens Ford, Dodge, Chrysler in the amount of $398,724, which is state contract pricing. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. How are you tonight, Chief?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Questions for the Chief?
Yeah, Chief, I hate to ask this question, but is there any way we can afford not doing all of this now? And I know things, and I know from the city manager's standpoint, he's trying to get as much done in a way this year as possible so as not to cloud the budget for next year. But that's a lot of money. I know we've had a couple cars, I don't know whether they were totaled or not, they were damaged in that accused murder, alleged murder chase. Is there any way that we can limp along with fewer than 10 vehicles? And I just throw that out. The last thing I want to do is put our officers in danger or reduce our ability to respond or anything along that line. But if it's a case where, well, the vehicle looks a little bit scruffy because it's got a couple dents here and there, well, we probably wouldn't be replacing it if it were just that. But is there any possible ability to reduce this?
Well, sir, all last budget cycle, 7 of these vehicles were actually replaced.
Chief, you're breaking up. I can't understand anything.
Chief,
I'm sorry.
you want to turn off your video? Sometimes that helps stabilize the audio.
How about now?
Much better.
Last budget cycle, we actually, Mayor and Council actually approved, I think, 7 replacements and 3 additional vehicles for I think we could certainly cut those 3 if necessary. And we've got, I think, about 4 vehicles that are total that we need to replace, and 2 others with blown engines with over 150,000 miles on them. So it would cost more than the cars are worth to put engines in them.
Right. So you're saying you need to replace 7 for sure.
Really, yes.
And the 3 that you wouldn't replace, but those were intended, I presume, to be take-home vehicles.
They were.
I just throw that out for the council. I'm not militant on this point. I'm just worrying a lot these days about our financial situation.
Understood.
And I'm looking any place I can, if we can let the grass grow longer, or maybe deal with 1 less car or whatever. We need to consider things like that.
I'm happy to cut that number down to 7 if that's amenable to everybody.
I think that would be a good idea because, you know, the revenue is going to be down and you know, if everything does get back to normal, which I doubt very seriously if it does it in the first 6 months of next quarter, but next year, but, you know, we could take another look at it, but I think that would help a lot.
So Chief, what would that, can we get a price on that? On what that total would be on 7?
Roughly 100.
You broke up on the response. I'm sorry.
It will be roughly $120,000, just under 120,000.
120,000 less.
It will be, yeah. The savings will be just under 1.
Okay, so roughly
40,000 a car.
Right.
Roughly
270.
39.
The total savings, ladies and gentlemen, is $119,617.20.
Okay, so what would the approval amount be then?
The difference between the 2 numbers.
Yes, I understand that.
I mean, I'm just talking out loud, ma'am. So the new transaction will be approximately $279,107.
Okay.
Are they SUVs, Chief?
Yes, sir, they are.
And how many cars will be left after you scrap the scrap some of them? How many will you have just still around in inventory?
We'll still have for patrol purposes a total of about 22.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve 7 replacement cars at the $279,000 amount.
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, that is unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Item B is consideration of an action on a request for approval of the acceptance of a mini pitch program grant from the U.S. Soccer Foundation to build a Musco mini pitch system over the current tennis court at Charles E. Phillips Park located on Herschel Road. Our Interim Director of Recreation and Cultural Arts, Michelle Johnson, has recommended acceptance of the $100,000 grant.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Councilman. How are y'all?
Good evening.
How's everybody?
I have a couple of questions. Who will maintain the field? We maintain the fields, or will we do that? I know that they're only going to be 2 12-week periods or something thereabouts, but in between those periods, when people go and use it and tear up the goal or some of the, will we be maintaining all of that?
So it's actually, it will be placed on top of the tennis court, so on the field per se, and it'll be on one side of the tennis court, so it won't take over both courts over there. And so maintenance is supposed to be very similar to what we're currently doing for our tennis courts. So it's a super great opportunity with, we've started the youth soccer program out there, and this mini pitch would be a great opportunity. Also with that multi-use field, we could utilize for some other activities such as adult soccer, flag football. It would bring, I think, an added benefit to that park. Now it'll be, the mini pitch is something new to us, at least our recreation department, but it seemed like a great opportunity with our youth program that we started out there last spring. Did that
Is
answer?
that going to be like the one they have down at the point next to Oz?
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, Councilman Allen.
There's someone who's getting a phone call. If you could go ahead and mute yourself, that'd be great.
What did you say, Councilman Allen? I'm sorry.
Just like or similar to the one they have next to Oz and East Point, that small soccer field there?
I'm not familiar with that field. It's similar. It'd be similar to kind of what we did with the Hawks court on top of the tennis. They lay down, a court for that mini pitch. So there's a relative, they were looking at, we would need to remove the fencing for them to get in there and to put the surface down. And then they would bring in some fantastic lighting, which would be great. So those are the things that we're looking at. And like I said, it would just seem like a good fit for over there at Phillips with the soccer program starting there last spring.
That's good. I'm good for anything with the kids. So.
Now, Michelle,
Yes,
I had a lot of dialogue with you today, and I got answers to all my questions. I want to thank you for that. First off, I'd like to commend Councilman Gay. I expect you had a hand in somehow getting this in there. I know you've been an enthusiast for the soccer program on the field down there, despite a lot of adversity in getting it done. So first, I'd like to say that the one area that I still have, I'm good with it, the whole thing. You answered the last question that it's only taken half the tennis court, so we still have one tennis court down there. The only question I have, and it's maybe more for Councilman Gay than it is for you, Michelle. When I went to support the idea of putting in the Hawks court, I got a lot of concern from council because we were concerned about having basketball courts available throughout the city because there was a general feeling that bad things could happen on a basketball court with drugs and what have you. And people tended to hang out there. I also got, and I thankfully to the support of the council, I was able to get that support. And I convinced them that, hey, this is in a high traffic area. There's a lot of things going on here. We're going to have the Hawks coming back and forth from downtown to the arena. And it was a great opportunity. A lot of police cars go by there because it's close to the police station, et cetera, et cetera. So we felt we could control it. Having said that, I still got a lot of resistance from the neighbors, some of the neighbors, and I still get concerns when adults, we had to limit it to convince the neighbors to go along with it. We had to limit the participation to students that were not more than 16 years old. We have had to lock the program. Lock the program, lock the court there, and recreation has had to have somebody available to go down and run people off the court when people have tried to violate the age regulations. So, having said that, have you talked to your constituents? Are they good with it? And is there a reason why you think that using it for soccer will not run into the same issues that we've run into with the Hawks court at Badgett Field?
Well, first of all, let me thank you because actually it was Councilman Clay who sponsored the motion on the soccer program last year. And so that's what actually got us a formal soccer program. The second thing is that I was totally surprised that we had that many kids playing soccer. I didn't even realize the youth soccer program was going to be that successful, and so that's why I got excited about the mini pitch. But specifically to answer your question, there's virtually no activity at that soccer field. I mean, it's I don't see any activity there whatsoever. There may be 1 or 2 people playing soccer a year. So we don't expect the kids use the upper soccer field for soccer, right, Michelle? And they literally wore out the sod. So to put them on a more impervious surface like the tennis court would be okay with me. And it could spur some other interest because you can see them playing from the road. I think the adults would share that multi-purpose field with soccer as well as but we don't, Michelle, correct me if I'm not mistaken, we don't have a formal adult program, so.
No,
right?
not correct. And I know we talked about doing some women's activities out there on those in that area too, and looking forward to some sort of health setup for them. And the multi-use needs a little more time to for the grass to set before the fall before we can use it. But we should be hopefully having some programs going out there with that multi-use, and then the smaller field for the soccer. And I thought the mini pitch would just be a great hand-in-hand situation to use. And I know, Councilman Allen, you asked about the 12 weeks. I did reach out and talk to U.S. Soccer. It is a program that we can run. They just want programming on it. They are looking forward to doing this. And I think this is in coalition with Kelly O'Hare, the team for the soccer team, because she's from our area or down south area, Peachtree City area, that they were looking in our area to bring in something to help add to the community. So it's an amazing opportunity. I know we looked and talked about doing something on that tennis court, but we talked about maybe a basketball goal, but I thought this would be something different that the city has not had in their parks yet. And we talked about possibly using the other side for pickleball, maybe doing some lines for pickleball and having tennis and pickleball and an option on those, the other side of the tennis court.
Now that's a good program. It's going to be a small court, so it'll be for smaller kids. So it's great to see them out running around. So,
okay. Absolutely. Any other questions?
I'm good.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the mini pitch program grant from the U.S. Soccer Foundation.
Second.
Thank you,
I'm
Jim.
sorry. I spoke over the second. Was that you, Councilman Allen?
Yeah, I said second. I think both of us did.
I said second, and he said second probably too.
Okay. All right. There's 2 seconds. All right. I think I heard Councilman Allen first, so we'll go with that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. That sounds unanimous to me.
Now comes the fun part.
Yes, I know. 8C, consideration of an action on a request for the approval of the repair of the chiller in the Wayman and Bessie Brady Recreation Center located at 3571 Brunningham Drive. This is a recommendation for Dakin applied to do the work for the amount of $48,879.77.
Okay. I'm going to jump in head first on this one. Michelle and I have been going back and forth on this for the last couple of days too. There's no reason that this should have happened. No good reason that this should have happened. So we're spending, how much is it? $50,000 roughly for no good reason. Having said that, I had a question. The one question I had is, Michelle, you said the previous director had refused the necessary maintenance on it. At least, obviously, he didn't think it was necessary, but the manufacturer says it's necessary. Is that correct?
Based on the information that I've been told, it was back in 2015. There had not been a problem with when they replaced it or with the chiller at some point in time without a filter system. So the water treatment. So that was the information that has been passed along to me with my research. So I don't know if I would have made the same decision too, based on if it was up and running and water treatment wasn't being used.
Yeah, we all make we all make bad calls. God knows I made them over my lifetime too. The question I would ask is, the system was installed by, what's the name of the company? Advian. Dakin, I'm sorry. It was installed by Dakin. It was warranted by Dakin for a year.
So it was installed by Legacy, startup by Dakin, and that process went from there.
Okay.
So, because I had to talk to Legacy today to get that clarity too. And again, trying to find out exactly what has happened through emails and information provided.
Okay, here's the thing. Legacy installed it. Dakin manufactured it. Dakin warrantied it. Is that correct?
And they started it up, correct.
Okay. And they started it up, right?
Correct.
Now, your information to me says that Legacy was told that they didn't, was it Legacy or Dakin was told that they did not want, that we did not want the filtration system on it?
I'm unclear if who told who that they did not want the water treatment, because that was.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so here's the thing, Mayor, you're the lawyer on the team.
But I'm not the city's lawyer. The city lawyer.
I know you're not. I know, but well, the city's lawyer is here too. Winston's here.
Yes.
Yeah, I should be addressed. Sorry, I should be addressing this to Winston. If Legacy is responsible for the maintenance on it, and the manufacturer recommends a filtration system, and Legacy installs it, why would they not come back and say, or whoever it was said that they didn't want it? Why would Legacy just sit back and say, okay, it's fine. If you don't want it, you don't have it. I would think a responsible company would say, you guys really, really need filtration on this system, and bad things will happen if you don't do it. So why is no one culpable that are supposed to be the experts on it? God knows we are not the experts on filtration systems and chillers. So why isn't there some other legal responsibility in there, Mr. Denmark?
It sounded like the city through its representative may have opted out, and we can certainly do that. A lot of times we make improvident choices to decline necessary services. It sounds like that's what happened, and we're still trying to. Well, it sounds like Ms. Johnson is trying to piece together precisely what happened, but from the sound of it, the previous director opted out, and the company rightly and reasonably said, well, if you make the decision to opt out, then we can't force you to have a service that you don't want. And they may have even covered themselves in writing saying you have opted out of this at your own peril. They may have even done it in writing. I don't know whether they did or whether they didn't.
Well, therein lies my question. Therein lies my question. Is there documentation that they warned us and that we, in writing, refused the service? Or is this just casual conversation? Because I would think, and I'm not a lawyer, but I would think that would make a difference as to whether somebody ought to be honoring at least part of these expenses.
Yeah, I think that would help. I'm not altogether satisfied that they had an affirmative obligation to have something in writing to memorialize our opt-out. That would have been a good practice on their part, because when things go bad, the customer would raise the questions that you're raising. Why can't we make them responsible for their failure to advise us of all the potential bad outcomes? And so if I was representing this air conditioner company, I would say, if someone opts out, get it in writing. But that would be me being prudent and forward thinking, not so much recognizing that they would have an affirmative legal obligation to do that.
Well, how can they prove that we even opted out if there's nothing in writing?
But if there's, I mean, I don't want to get bogged down in this, because
it's a mess.
The fact of the matter is, I mean, if we had paid for this filtration system and it wasn't there, I think that might be a larger issue. But I don't think that there's any representation that we did not get something that we paid for. And so I think I mean, if you want Mr. Denmark to explore the options of figuring, seeing if there's any remedies for us in regard to this system, that's one thing. But
yes,
the issue before us right now is we've got a system that is bogged down by sludge or other things, and it needs to be repaired.
Okay, Mayor, there's another issue with it. We may have had sludge due to lack of a filtration system, because there's actually, the filtration system is missing. It's not just that it isn't cleaned and processed.
Right.
There's actually a component missing, as I understand it. So there's another issue to it. When I looked at the Freon requirements on there, one of the two compressor circuits, they call them, is totally missing Freon. So that tells me there's a leak there. And so we're going to have to buy more Freon, which is not cheap, to fill that circuit. They will recover Freon from the circuit that did not leak. And I would think that ought to be under warranty. And I didn't see anything about that being covered by warranty either.
No,
and that was a problem with installation if there's a leak in the system.
Well, they think that the filtration, the buildup caused the issues that caused the leak. So that's my understanding, at least trying to get all the information together.
I think you ought to talk to a refrigeration expert. I'm not that, but I've done a fair amount of refrigeration work on my own system at one time. And I would be very surprised that was in a year that sludge in the system was causing Freon to leak. But I think we ought to look into this. I totally agree with the mayor that this is probably longer discussion than we should have on it. But I'd like to see both of those aspects looked into. The warranty for the Freon and whether we actually did in writing opt out of having that installed. And I agree that it makes more sense to refurbish this system as long as the compressor is not damaged on the system that leaked the Freon, because you run a system without Freon in it, you get water damage and you can damage the compressor.
So the compressors will be 2 new compressors is what the Daikin representative told me today, and they will warranty it until February of 20.
Okay, good.
Those will be new compressors. So
okay.
At least that's the
all right. With that having been said, what I would do, I'll make a motion that we approve this for the $50,000, roughly $50,000 of rejuvenating the existing system rather than putting in the forced air system, which is 3 times as much. But I would like legal to look into the issue of the opting out, whether it's documented and whether we should get any return or reimbursement for some of that, not the whole thing, but for some of that. And also, I'd like us not to be paying for Freon that we shouldn't be paying for. And that's my motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 9A, Mayor and Council discussion and consideration appointing an at-large College Park Business and Industrial Development Authority board member. I think we may need to defer this discussion until the next meeting, as I think that there was at least one application that we need to discuss in terms of timeliness. But
and there was another application that I know was submitted prior to even the initial deadline, I think, being set, and for some reason wasn't included in the pack either.
Okay.
So we need to look at all of that.
I'll make a motion, we defer this until the next council.
Or May 18th, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. 10A, New business, consideration of an action on a request for readoption of the College Park Transit-Oriented Development Plan of 2012 and the updated 2020 TOD plan. Mr. Jones, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The College Park United Methodist Church is doing a redevelopment of their property, which includes their sanctuary, their education building, their parsonage also, and their parking lot. As a part of this project, they also are planning to do a multifamily development on the vacant parking lot. The College Park United Methodist Church, in cooperation with a local developer, are pursuing low-income housing tax credit funding through the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. To make their application to make it more competitive, they have to actually have the TOD of 2012. It has to be readopted, and also the infrastructure plan for the TOD has to be updated. What you have in your packet is an addendum to the TOD, which provides the latest information as far as infrastructure within the city of College Park, populations, a lot of demographic information. I have been approached by several council people with very note of assessments that need to be made. And I'm here at this time now to address any questions that you might have, and also to make any further adjustments to the TOD addendum.
All right, Councilman Clay.
Well, I had given Artie some minor changes. The head count at the last census was wrong in there. There was a statement about the number of building permits that have been issued over the last several years, and it just needs to be clarified that those aren't building permits in general. Those are new start building permits, and I think he's already worked those into the text. I'm totally supportive of this program. I think it will revitalize the downtown area. I think it will help get affordable housing for more of our city employees and people that work in the area. I think it's just a good thing all around. The other development that's going on at the Methodist Church helps bring in some artistic influence into the downtown area. I see this as just a win-win all around for everyone, and I totally support. I was involved in the TOD when it was originally done several years ago, and I think this meets the spirit of the original TOD. So I'm totally in favor.
I don't have any problems. I sent a couple of cleanup issues to Artie, and I'm sure you'll take a look at those, but I'm fine with it too, exactly like it is.
Okay. Councilman Taylor?
Hey, I agree. I don't have a problem with the project. I like it myself. Right. Yeah, I agree with it.
Councilman Gay?
Okay with it.
I'll make a motion to approve then.
I have one question, Mr. Jones. On page 24 of 30, there were no multifamily permits issued from 2008 to 2019. What about the pad?
From
it's table 12.
Table 12. Okay. Multifamily.
There should be one that I missed.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely one, 109 unit multifamily development, the pad on Harvard.
Right.
The information within this table was information that was submitted from the various departments with the City of College Park, but that is definitely a needs to be updated.
Okay.
And that would have been approximately 2015 is when construction started, I believe. Yeah, 2015 is when construction started, so it would either fall in 2015 or 2016. Residential permit, it would be 2015.
Okay. All right.
Well, I'll adjust my motion to approve with those changes.
All right. And there was a second? I'm not sure.
I had
I'm sorry.
I had a second on it, but there was a couple of cleanup issues that I had with Artie.
Yeah, I think we just take all the changes and pack them into the document. I guess the question that we used to ask on council was, do we need to bring the document back for another review? And I don't think so. I think the changes are pretty obvious.
I agree. I think we can prove it, and Artie can make the few changes we have.
Okay.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Was it in the zoning approval that anything built in the transit oriented development would be subject to tax? They would not be eligible to apply for tax credit, not the credits to bill it, but I think y'all said tax abatement. Is that within the development plan? Or do we put that in another document?
That's actually for city-owned property. If we sell the property, we control if there's any tax abatement. But with this low-income housing tax credit, they are not allowed to have tax abatement with this particular program. They have to own the project outright for a minimum of 15 years. And then leading up to that 15 years, they have to be kind of like reinstated to continue to have those low-income tax credits to come to them. And if they do not, then they would owe that money back to the state. But as far as tax abatement, this particular building would not have any tax abatement.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Councilman Gay, are you there?
Oh,
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. It's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Item 10B, consideration of an action on an ordinance requiring multifamily apartment complex owners to register for a rental permit and other relevant changes. Mr. Moore?
But at this time, I'd like to give Winston Denmark the opportunity because it is an ordinance revision, but essentially it's based on direction having been offered by the group a few weeks back to incorporate a rental permit registration process. And so Winston, I'd like for you to discuss the particulars relative to the ordinance and the section that it applies. Winston Denmark.
Sure. Yes, thank you, Mr. Moore. Well, this is obviously in response to a request from the mayor and council. We have drafted this ordinance that will essentially require this registration for apartment complex owners. It is to be read in tandem with the existing provisions that are in our International Property Maintenance Code and other areas of the code. And so it would require the registration for the vendors and the repairmen who are working on various units at these apartment complexes. And it would also try to accomplish the ends of registration, permits, and all those other functionalities. Now, I received some comments from Councilman Clay this afternoon, and I believe we've addressed those in a red line version that we sent out to both the city manager and to the Councilman Clay. And so if those have not been addressed, then we can certainly try to address them, but we could, I believe we have adequately addressed it in the red line version that we sent out this afternoon.
Okay. I guess that's my cue. Yeah, the concern I had was that we were referring to registering individual units as opposed to complexes, which would have been very paper intensive. And you addressed that. I actually had a chance to read the red line, Winston, since we had a little hiatus in the meeting. The one question I don't know that I saw in there was how did you address the issue that I had with group homes on packet page 396? Does this in any way cause a problem in, we regulate group homes a certain way. Does this cause any conflict that would undercut that ordinance?
No, sir. We try to say early on in the recitals and elsewhere that everything that we're doing here is to supplement what we already have. So we don't, when it comes to things like the group homes or the Gold Star, we're not trying to change or lift or revise obligations that would fall on these multifamily dwelling places. We're trying to supplement with some of these additional things. I know we mentioned group homes, but we're not trying to change the regulation on group homes. I thought we had gone back and clarified that, but if it requires further refinement, they were certainly prepared to do that, because if you're not satisfied that on its face, as it exists right now in the draft in front of you, that we're not changing the regulation on group homes, then we should probably add the language that makes that more clear than it is now.
Yeah, I would probably feel a little more comfortable about that, just because I know we have illegal group homes in my ward.
Yes, sir.
For a fact.
Okay.
And we need to address that at some point, but we're pretty busy with a number of other things right now. But so anything that would weaken that is not the direction I'd want to go into.
Yes, sir. Well, if subject to that revision, which I think we could just add some language there that makes it perfectly and abundantly clear that that's not what this ordinance does. I think we could accomplish that very easily.
Okay, well, I leave it to the rest of the council to say whether they have other changes or want to bring it back.
I got a question, and maybe it's just me, and maybe I don't understand the wording, but on line 267, it talks about accurate and complete information. It says when the owner is not a natural person.
Right. Well, a natural person would be a live human being, whereas an artificial person would be a corporation.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just didn't understand what that was, and that's why I had that question. That's all I have.
Because this is going to be an ordinance, I would feel comfortable approving it as exactly written. So I would feel more comfortable if we were to make any changes that we need to and bring it back on May 18th.
I think that's a good idea.
I have a question. That's fine. Are we allowed to make a motion contingent on those changes and we'll approve it on May 18th?
Why would we do that? I mean, I think if we task Mr. Denmark to make those changes, and if the changes are as simple as he says, and I think that they are, then it would make sense that perhaps we get them even before we get the agenda packet to make sure that everyone is on board. So all we have to do is go approve it on May 18th. But
that's fine. I had two questions then. That's fine. That's fine about that. Bring it. But Winston, I had two additional questions.
Yes, sir.
I guess you can tell I didn't read my ordinance that well, but will this, I think Councilman Allen asked this, will this affect businesses, maintenance personnel, like hotels? Will they be required to file a maintenance permit?
No, this would not affect hotels. This is just multifamily residential dwelling, so it wouldn't deal with commercial properties like hotels.
And the second question I had is, in the ordinance that you draft, are we able to charge for these permits?
Yes, sir. There's some fees that are set forth in the ordinance. Yes, sir.
Fair enough.
so is there a motion to defer this to the May?
Moved.
Okay, let me finish the defer to the May 18th meeting with.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. With legal counsel making the suggested updates to it.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second, but discussion.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Can somebody explain to me what I don't quite get what we're doing about the group homes. I wasn't really following it. What does this motion do, Councilman Clay, to group
Okay.
homes?
Roderick, we have a requirement in the city of a certain distance between group homes so that we would not have a grouping of group homes all in one area, and we would not have an unusually large number of group homes in the city. And I was just concerned that somehow this regulation, by lumping them in with multifamily in general, would somehow, and I'm not a lawyer, would put them into a class that all of a sudden we couldn't regulate them separately. That may sound dumb, but that was what was going through my mind.
Like making them become legitimate, because I thought group homes was prohibited.
They are not prohibited. They are limited, if I'm correct, Winston.
Yeah, and you cannot exclude them altogether under the Fair Housing Act. That would not be legal, but we can certainly regulate them in reasonable distance requirements and such as we've done would certainly be fair game, but an out and out prohibition would violate the Fair Housing Act.
We have numerous group homes in Ward 4 in the apartments. So now my question is, does this then make those apartment owners subject to this ordinance or not subject to the revised when you bring it back?
The definition of multifamily might include group homes, but we're going to be clear that nothing that we're doing here would change the obligations, the limitations that we legitimately imposed on group homes. So we need to make that perfectly clear.
Okay, any other questions? All right, there's been a motion and a second to defer to the May 18th meeting to allow council to update the discussed changes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. City Attorney's report. Anything
Nothing
else?
this evening. No, ma'am.
All right. City Manager's report. 12A and B are discussions and updates on the top 10 delinquent property taxpayers and the delinquent utility customer accounts.
Yes. So if there are any questions, concerns about either of those items, we will be more than happy to address those via the assistance of the Department of Finance and Accounting staff is in position. But after these dialogues, I do have an additional item, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to summarize for everybody's update and guidance, not so much guidance, but update.
Absolutely.
Thank
Any questions on either the property tax or utility delinquencies?
I have none now.
Yeah.
I had a question, not about any particular. I had a call today about someone not able to pay for their mom's utility from out of town on the website, and wanted to know, will that be available? Well, it's not. The site is down.
Okay.
It should be up, but can you forward me their information and I'll have staff reach out to them tomorrow to give them a phone call, but it should be working.
I will.
If you email me the information, I'll have them get in contact with him.
All right.
Okay.
And Althea, I'll also help with that from a technology standpoint to look at that link.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Ms. Fleur Bradley, am I correct in looking at this, and our arrearages on the utility portion is north of $100,000 at this point for the 0 to 30 days?
It's about, it's more than that. It's about 700,000.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong, okay.
We normally don't put the arrearages on, but we do forward them as the council requests them, but they're about $783,000 at this point.
783, all right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We're going to have to start collecting some of this money.
Absolutely, and we shall as we resume normal direction, which is what I like to talk about now.
Any other questions on either the utility or property tax delinquencies?
None.
All right. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So last week I had an opportunity to speak to all of you on an individual basis relative to the fact that the state level shelter in place order is to be expiring April 30th, which it has. It has not been extended in that regard. We also talked a little bit about the previous executive order that governed that arrangement to expire on the 13th, which is pretty much not an issue at this particular point in time because of the current direction to reopen the state of Georgia. So my dialogue with each of you all was to discuss the initial thoughts relative to reopening municipal operations, particularly City Hall and the parks. And the initial thinking was, of course, because of the May 13th expiration of the aforementioned executive order, we would then proceed with reopening in stages, if you will, normal operations at College Park City Hall Thursday, May 14th. That is a direction I continue to support, along with the same for municipal park operations, with some of the provisos I summarized to y'all in an email in writing. So I did have an opportunity to consult with Elijah Robinson, Dr. Elijah Robinson, the city's medical director, who you all have interacted with before. So in essence, he did offer recommendations specifically to Mayor Motley Broom, and then he had a follow-up direction with me to make arrangements accordingly as well. So the general direction at this time is to resume operations on a phased approach beginning Thursday, May 14th, with the following 8-point provisos. Number one, maintaining a safe distance between individuals, approximately 6 feet. So you may acknowledge, for those of you who had an opportunity to visit us here at College Park City Hall, to note that there have been place markers along the floor, 6 feet apart, for people utilizing the utility customer accounts to pay the bills, etc. So we've created that environment in the one area in which people congregate to engage in activity, much like one would experience while shopping at a store, for example. For the first remaining days of May, from May 14th until May 29th, maintaining appointments. And so aside and apart from individuals being able to enter College Park City Hall to take care of utility bill payments, etc., activities associated with the Office of the City Manager, Department of Finance and Accounting, any other office of city operations based here at College Park City Hall will be on an appointment basis only. Of course, number three, to routinely clean and sanitize workstations and countertops. So the custodial staff here at College Park City Hall has already been directed accordingly since the sanitization and sterilization of College Park City Hall on April 1st. The fourth point is to have employees who deal directly with customers on a first contact basis to wear a mask. So that works out pretty well. However, this is not something that Dr. Robinson recommends for those of us who operate in an office setting. But again, for the receptionist at the counter, at the lobby, that would be appropriate, and others who have a direct point of contact that do not experience a glass shield or any other form of protection. Dr. Robinson does not recommend the utilization of gloves, as gloves could give a false sense of protection. So that is not a standard deemed appropriate. He also does not recommend or do not believe that temperature checks should be required. Many patients of COVID-19 do not have fever. And 7, if able, providing an environment where employees can still call out sick if they have a fever and or cough, at least stay from home. And the 8th point, of course, is to continue hand hygiene, washing hands, some of the points we hear about on the news for 20 seconds, etc. So essentially, following these guidelines would essentially allow us to open City of College Park safely. So, and this is direction consistent with research and data, and something that we would continue to evaluate. But based on this intelligence and background, and the fact that there is not a shelter-in-place order other than those who are senior population and above, and those who are not doing well in terms of health, we are at liberty to proceed in that regard. I've also shared with you all in writing some of the guidelines and standards relative to the park opening process. So the common areas are not to be made available immediately, at least for the first 2 to 3 weeks or so of this arrangement being made, but basically providing an opportunity to include an educational process of posting and directing social distancing and other commentary along those lines. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, with the provisos I provided to you all this evening orally, as well as previous commentary in writing, it is appropriate that we proceed as noted. So what I'd like to do later this week is to initiate the applicable educational process for all employees to include flyer distributions and other applicable postings so that we can transition in this regard. Now, I anticipate that by Monday, June 1st, if statistics continue to hopefully improve with respect to the next phases of remedy, that the City Hall facility would become more open above and beyond the appointment dynamic and those types of arrangements. But based on recommendations we're receiving from our medical director, as well as feedback from other experts regarding the park environment based on my written summary to you all last week, I'd like to have city administration to proceed as outlined.
And of course, all this is dependent upon the data trending in the right direction, of course.
Yes, ma'am, with the proviso that the data continues to trend or is to trend in the right direction. That's where we are. Of course, if something drastically changed beyond that, Mayor Motley-Broom and gentlemen, of course, we will revise those timeframe considerations.
Mayor, I have a question and a disagreement.
Sure.
I disagree with the comment about taking temperature.
Okay.
While it is true that you can be contagious and not have a temperature.
Right.
If someone were to come to work with a temperature, you have increased the probability that they are probably contagious. They might have something else, but for sure, one would think you would take a look at it and say, well, wait a minute, if you've got a temperature, even if you don't have COVID, maybe you have the flu, and do I want you to give the flu to anyone else? So why would we not want to take temperatures? That's my first disagreement and question, and I got another one after that.
Well, again, based on the discussions and recommendations from our medical director, Dr. Elijah Robinson, based on that's a recommendation he offered, that he did not think temperature checks should be required as a result of many patients of COVID-19 do not have a fever. That's the written commentary to that effect. And he did back it up orally. So that's purely based on a recommendation he has offered. Otherwise, I am open.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I shouldn't be cutting you off.
That's quite all right. Otherwise, I am open to whatever arrangements we can make, particularly these first couple of weeks, if that assists in achieving a comfort level above and beyond what I've outlined.
Okay, two other things. As far as the parks go, we've had this discussion.
Yes,
if we're going to open the parks with limited access, then you're going to have somebody there to enforce it.
Yes, sir.
And in the past, it has taken us literally weeks to get park rangers, sometimes a couple months. And we've always started late with not having enough park rangers, having to rotate park rangers between parks, etc. We need park rangers there most of the time, almost all the time when the parks are open, in order to enforce the regulations.
Yes, sir.
I find it hard to believe that we're going to have park rangers in place. So where are we on that?
So right now, current arrangements are being made to have park rangers to begin work a couple of days in advance of May 14th. We're looking at Monday, May 11th, sir, based on direction offered to both the Department of Recreation and Cultural Arts and that of the Department of Human Resources and Risk Management. So we've actually have 7 individuals in the queue for 6 assignments, and we are wrapping up that process as we are over the next day or two, with the first day of park rangers anticipated to begin service this coming Monday, May 11th, so that we can begin the necessary education and orientation process based on the expectations being outlined at this time. So that is part of the package as well, Councilman Clay and ladies.
That's good news, Terrence. You've done a really good job this year. The other thing I would say is I happen to be in the at-risk population. that is required under the state ordinance to shelter in place. So I will be happy to resume appointments on, normally I have office hours on Friday morning. I'll be happy to resume appointments, but I'll do it by Zoom and I'll do it from home.
Yes, sir.
But otherwise, I think the thermometer thing temperature thing makes no logical sense to me.
Well, if Dr. Robinson can flesh it out a little bit more, I mean, I do think that, him being a medical professional and his experience in the field, I want to do everything that we can to make sure that we are being as safe as possible as we do a very controlled return to whatever our new normal is. But when I reached out to Dr. Robinson, he was very thoughtful about it. And so if you want to, I mean, we still have some time before this would be enacted anyway. And so if you want to reach out to him and get a little bit more information about where he stands on it or his thought process, I think that's,
I'd like to do that because I just don't, it doesn't make logical sense. I know he's an expert, but if you've got to increase the risk by not taking temperatures to some degree, and how much effort is required to take temperatures. That's where I am.
All right.
I like to comment as far as going back to the use of the parks. One thing I noticed about Phillips Park, it's not so much the people who bring their kids and walk. They look like they practicing social distance. It's those groups that come in there with their cars and use those pavilions. That's what
will not be open during this initial period, sir.
So I noticed a couple parks in Atlanta, you can't drive through your parks. It kind of cuts a lot of the traffic down. So that's just a thought. We're trying to control our way back into Phillips Park.
That's not a bad idea. Just block off the parking there so that people can't drive there. And that way you just pick up the neighborhood.
You cut down on a lot of large.
That's a good idea, Councilman Gay.
I'd say the same thing for Barrett Park and probably all the parks. I don't know, Ken, you can comment with regard to what you have in your area.
A lot of people walk. They have a few parking places that, at the Tracy Wyatt Center, you could block off some of those, but over Zupp Park, you could block off those and people would walk there and you could use that easy.
Right.
I have another question. When you talk about City Hall, you talk about routine cleaning. Are we going to expedite, cleaning the doors and just adding more cleaning people, or what are we going to do? Because routine cleaning is, once a night or what is that?
It is once a night. However, we are bringing in custodial staff over from the Georgia National Convention Center to assist us with the elevated level of cleaning and sanitation. So that's a discussion we had at our executive team meeting last night about that. We have staff available in that regard. So that's a coordinated effort to begin this week. So we're expanding the human resources necessary to accomplish that task.
That's a good use of those people. Good.
Yes, sir. Good. And if I may, ladies and gentlemen, just to reiterate some points I offered via my electronic mail messages to you all last week relative to park reopening, the common areas, the pavilions, in addition to the direction that I will accept regarding creating a walkable environment only for the parks, at least for the first couple of weeks of reopening beginning May 14th, is that the respective common areas, pavilions, and that will also not be available. No organized sport competition at this point as well. Essentially, these first couple of weeks into June, at the very least, as the phasing approach continues globally, that is to essentially create a walkable environment only. So Terrence Moore will walk back to Badger Stadium to hit the track the following Sunday, which would be Sunday, May 17th. No car, walk over there, and that's really the environment for everybody, for instance. So I like the idea of not encouraging driving up to the parks and that. I appreciate that sentiment, because again, I think that's a sensible phased approach to transitioning into what will become the new normal. So thank you for that feedback, ladies and gentlemen. So Chief Elmore, can I ask if Chief Elmore is still with us? Chief Elmore.
Hey, Senator, I got something for you now.
Okay, Chief Elmore, stand by, please. Councilman Taylor, go ahead, sir.
Hey, I got two things. I feel like, you know, open back up the city hall in phase like you're trying to do. I think that may work. We can control that a little more, but I definitely agree that we need those temperatures, baby, take a person's temperature when they come in city hall. I don't understand why the doctor would say that, and of course everybody make mistakes, you know what I mean? But I don't think we need to even open it, not even thinking about taking a person's temperature when they come in the building. Now I think for the parks, that's something that we can't control. I think we should keep the parks closed. You know, if we gonna have park rangers in 1 week, we already been working on this anyway. I think we just need to keep the parks closed. I definitely agree about the city hall. You know what I mean? Do it in phases, keep it clean, stuff like that. But I don't think we should open the parks up, in my opinion.
Yes, sir. So on that note, wait, Elmore, if I can get back to you, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I would like for you and I to get together and have a brief conference call with Dr. Robinson tomorrow morning to talk about the merits of temperature checks.
Sure.
When we're talking about temperature checks, we're talking about we need to create an environment in which we can easily apply the tools necessary for people coming in, also employees in that. So we're talking about two tiers of people, employees who are to work at the facility, as well as patrons who may be entering into the building. So I'd like to work with you, Chief Elmore, beginning tomorrow morning to create that environment to get to that place. So I will likewise ask you to initiate a dialogue with Dr. Robinson first thing in the morning, and I'll get together with you soon thereafter.
Will do. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Will somebody give me the contact information for Dr. Robinson or ask him to contact me?
Sure. I could email that to you, Councilman Clay.
Thank you.
Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, I yield at this time. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So the next thing would be report of mayor and council. Let's start with Councilman Allen.
Oh, okay.
Mix it up.
I've got a couple of things. Again, thanks again to the people on the front line. Thanks to the citizens for adhering to the rules. I think hopefully it's going to help. Wednesday is National Nurses Day, so let's all remember the nurses around here. I want to mention that there's going to be a meeting tomorrow afternoon. I think it's at 4 o'clock on 6 West.
Right.
Yes.
Everybody, you know, come express your views. The census, we want to keep on fighting on that and pushing on that. I want to give a hats off to Woodward for going out to every one of their senior students, wherever they are. They went out and put a sign in their yard and gave them a bag of goodies and things like that. No matter if they were in Alpharetta or if they were at a logging camp or wherever, they went to every single senior's house the other day and gave them that. And I thought that was really, really good of Woodward. I want to thank Judge Penny Brown and the Idaho Church for giving away a lot of food Saturday at the Godby Center, at the Tracy Wyatt Center. At the church rather. They had a lot of cars lined up and gave away a lot of food, and it was appreciated by a lot of people. But again, just everybody stay safe. We don't want to start this all over again. We got to be careful.
Amen.
Absolutely. Councilman Gay.
All right, I have a few things, but I'll be brief. I don't normally acknowledge people that we've lost during my mayor, during the comment section, but there's an exception. As a council member in Ward 4, I have found that I'm often part of the terms of a lot of people's lives. In other words, there are a lot of elderly in my ward, and I try to honor everyone by attending their homegoing or sending a card. But we lost Lonnie Kirk, who is about a 30-year resident of our ward. And the reason why I'm also acknowledging Lonnie, and I think Councilman Allen also brought it to our attention, that he was one of the founding board members of DMO.
Yes, he was.
And that means a lot. He actually worked hard with the previous mayor and council to develop that. So he'll be missed, and he's survived by his wife, and we're there to support her. Second thing is, I want to thank Public Works Building and Grounds. If you notice all over the city, building and grounds have planted flower beds. And each year they look better and better. I think Jason, our building and grounds superintendent, has trained his staff to do a great job. It's extremely professional, and I appreciate that. I seldom ever do this, and I don't know why I'm doing it, but I want to also acknowledge the city manager. Through this COVID-19 experience, I've noticed that he's done a remarkable job. I've noticed he's here all the time, and he just got all the checks and balances. I mean, say what you want. As Michael Jackson once said, you may not like me, but you sure as hell gonna respect me. So I want to give Terrence kudos for that.
Thank you, sir.
Also, Providence Baptist Church as well had a food drive that I was able to attend and take food to some of our constituents. So thank you to Pastor Nasby and his congregation. And finally, and we don't have to get into this because I am meeting with them, but finally, Duke's Weeks, the warehouse on 29, I don't think they're in compliance with what was a very lengthy conversation on curb and apron that enabled trucks to not turn out onto 29. So I just want us to be mindful that that's a concern that I'm having, and I am supposed to be meeting with our city engineer tomorrow on that. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Taylor?
Yes. I just got one thing. When we put in place for the hazard of pay, a lot of different people are talking about if they miss a day, will they get paid, and if they get sick. I think we got to do a better clarity on how these people are getting paid. It's so many different departments. If you miss this day, you're not gonna get it. You know what I mean? So I like I told them, I'm not clear. You know what I mean? I know it's incentive pay, but if a person misses one day out of a whole month, do they get paid or not? And I don't think we even never talked about it when we decided to get them the $500 and the $250. I'm not clear on it, and I think a lot of employees are not clear. So I don't know if Terrence, you guys do it in your little meeting y'all have on Wednesdays or whatever, but it's different. They hear different things from different departments. There's different rules for different departments, and I think we didn't set we didn't set no ground rules that I can remember. You know, I never heard we never said anything about days. So I think we just got to focus on that also.
All right, and we will have a written summary in terms of how that works so that is clear. So we will proceed in that regard. Essentially, ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of a hazard pay program is essentially to encourage the frontline individuals in police, public works, fire to be available in that. And so if a person is missing, and I made this clear to all respective department directors to advise them of their leadership team members to educate employees. If a person is out a day or two, something along those lines for a reasonable issue, have to take off sick leave, whatever the case may be, we will work with people. But if we're talking about people gone 2 weeks or an entire month or something like that, that kind of defeats the purpose in that regard. So we are working to be uniform in that regard, ladies and gentlemen, administratively. And that is the clarification we've since made since you brought those concerns to my attention. But again, once I get back to weekly reporting in the next couple of weeks, it looks like, I will include a written summary for you all so that you all can see and understand clearly what I just outlined here orally. All
right. Thank you very much. Anything else, Councilman Taylor?
No, that's pretty much it. But like I said, with Terrence, like an example, if a firefighter missed one day, one shift. That's
Councilman
24
Taylor,
hours.
Councilman Taylor, I don't mean to cut you. I actually am cutting you off, and I apologize. But he just said he's gonna clarify it, and they're gonna discuss it. So, do we want to wait for them to get it back to us, or?
I agree with that.
Okay.
I'll have something in writing for you all. Again, I'm looking to resume weekly reporting over the next couple of weeks, and so that will be a feature thereof. But we are educating all involved to that effect. And quite frankly, if there's any employee, for the record and publicly, who has a question about that, my door is open. It's always been open, but even more so during the current state of affairs. So from the city manager down, we are available, and that is clear.
All right. Anything else, Councilman Taylor?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Clay.
Okay, I've got a couple things. First off, Terrence, where are we with the service line warranty program?
With the National League of Cities, you're specifically referring to. So we provided leadership from the National League of Cities, our information, our data, and that, as I understand it, they have everything that they need from the city of College Park to proceed accordingly. A big focus these days for the National League of Cities, of course, is some of the issues and challenges associated with COVID-19, because, of course, as they represent cities, they're spending a lot of time and energy and resources to be responsive in that regard. However, to answer the question, we provided them the contact information. They have everything that they need to advance that opportunity. So we look forward to them getting back to the place in which they can resume activities as normal.
Well, could you possibly follow up with them? Because it would strike me that that's a different part of the National League of Cities than the part that lobbies with the government on and addresses bills and so forth. And I realize it can be disruptive, and maybe some of them are out with COVID-19, but at least could you at least tickle them and see if they're working the issue at all?
Yes, sir. On that note, Councilman Clay, Shabela Moore, if I can get your assistance. So when we received direction from Mayor and City Council to engage with the National League of Cities regarding the service line program, our point of contact, who's actually here locally, is Mr. Lee Zell. So Shabela, if I can ask you to initiate dialogue with him, and I'll follow up with you across the board so that we can be sure that we honor the request as outlined. And if there's an issue or challenge associated with being more timely with that, we will advise the Mayor and City Council accordingly. So Shabela, I'll be needing your assistance in that regard, because Shabela was very helpful in terms of arranging and assembling the information necessary for the National League of Cities program via Lee Zell to engage the service line program opportunity in our community.
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay, second item I had, I got a request today from a resident out in the Links. They have a tremendous community spirit out there, and they try once a week to all get together on their front porches individually. So it's a lot like what you see on TV, where they're leaning out their apartment windows or out on their balconies or what have you. Well, what they do there, they get out on their front porch and they kind of wave across the street and say hi to their neighbors, but they don't get together in one spot. What they would like to do, and they do this every week anyhow, but what they would like to do is have a food truck come in and have people order in advance and have them schedule the orders. So they're not going to congregate around the food truck. They're just going to, at their assigned time, go up to the food truck, pick up their order, go back to their front porch, and that's the end of it. Now, I know we have a prohibition against food trucks, and we make exceptions for the Methodist Church, for example. That's a church event. I expect that if I wanted to have a food truck park out in front of my house to serve us food, if we weren't in a COVID-19 kind of thing, I don't even know that we'd need approval from council on that. But because of the whole situation, I thought I would bring it to council. I said, well, you missed the deadline for this council meeting because you're just talking to me today. But and then it occurred to me, I don't think we require even any vote on it. does anybody have a problem with them doing that kind of a thing?
I think it's a good idea. As long as they
They reached out to
maintain.
me as well. So I said, our regulations prohibit it, but, reach out to Renee, and they reached out to you as well. And I don't have any issue with it at all. I think it's great.
Okay, so we have consensus that it's okay?
I can sit to it, but we do have it in our ordinance that they're not allowed. How do you legally,
Well,
our ordinance?
Our food trucks, if, for example, if I have an event, let's say I have something at Barrett Park, some kind of a reunion at Barrett Park, I can have a gaming truck come there. I don't know that we have prohibited food trucks. And maybe you're right. If it's against the ordinance, then I don't think we can do it. I think we have to bring it up formally at the next council meeting, like we would do with this, and it'll just have to be delayed. But I don't want to do anything in my report that is out of keeping with what we should normally follow procedure.
I think it's a great idea. They can come by my house, but I'm just saying, you can check with Winston. It's in our ordinance.
Okay, well, let's ask Winston. Would it be a violation for an individual to have a food truck come to their house and have some neighbors take part in it? Is that a violation of the ordinance?
I haven't looked at that food truck ordinance or that provision in quite a while, so forgive me. I don't have the ability to answer that off the top of my head, but I can figure the answer out to that tomorrow morning.
They would need a permit, Councilman Clay, for that. There's a special permit.
You can apply for a permit. Would that be the Taylor?
I'm sorry, Ms. Moore. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
So for the food truck, anyone can ask for that, to come out to their house, business, or whatever, but they would need a permit for it. That is presented to mayor and council at a council meeting.
Okay, then that's the answer.
Then
I'm going to ask them to bring the request back. They'll just have to wait a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Anything else, Councilman Clay?
One last thing I'll just throw out to the council, and that is that we've delayed the review of BIDA appointment resumes to the next council meeting. Are we still going to hold that the deadline is over with for submission of resumes, or are we going to open it up again? We didn't discuss that previously. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other. I just throw it out there.
Can we continue this conversation? I'd like to get the pulse of each member. I mean, go right ahead. If everybody wants to put their 2 cents in there.
Well, my personal opinion is that I've seen the overall slate of candidates. There were a couple questionable because they had missed the window, but they were close. I think we've got a good slate of candidates that we can make a good decision from. That's my personal feeling. I don't see a need to do that, but it's a point that you can question and bring up. So I brought it up.
I'm only aware of one applicant who did not get his application in per the second guidelines. He did it before we even had guidelines. It appears that he did exactly what the second set of guidelines require. That's my only issue with this.
Right. Which is one of the reasons that we postponed the discussion tonight. So I'm hearing that it would not be a reopening. It would just be making sure that we have the complete list of the people who did apply and making sure that we make our decision from there.
Are you
That's
saying
good with
that?
me.
Are y'all saying that person can't be included? I think two of us are saying the same thing about the same person.
Well, I think what we're saying is if they just missed the window and they had already applied or had been trying to apply, we were going to accept them.
Okay, that's all.
That's what I heard, but we weren't going to open up the window for a whole nother bunch of candidates to come in that we haven't seen anything on. Is that correct, Mayor?
That is what I was saying.
Okay,
I understand.
that's good. That's
Okay.
it.
Councilman Taylor, you good with that?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
All right, great. So Councilman Clay, anything else?
That's it.
All right. Again, I thank everyone for their patience and their understanding during this time. We are doing our best as the data changes, as the information that we get changes, and just keep on taking care of each other out there because we've been doing a really good job of it in so many different ways. And I'm grateful for the community that we have. With that, we are going to approve those executive session minutes at the next meeting, as we did not go over them inside executive session. So we will make sure that we handle that at the next executive session. And so I will declare this meeting adjourned at 9:21. Thank you. Have a great evening, everybody.
Night.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you. Night.